I wasn't meant to overhear it. I was seated at my workstation, gazing at the open electronic sheets on my portable computer when my communication device rang. My dad's contact details appeared on the display. Father, a label that previously held affection, but recently felt like a duty. I answered. Hey, Father. No reply initially. I suspected it was a poor reception, but then I detected movement, the sound of a seat scraping across the floor covering, a deep breath, and then his tone. She's unsuccessful. She'll never make it. My core tightened. I froze. The device still held to my ear. Come on, Robert. My mom's voice joined in, softer but just as sharp. She's managing. She covers the dwelling payment, doesn't she? My father sneered. That's the absolute least she can manage after everything we've provided for her. You imagine I'm pleased with her? She was a blunder that should have never occurred. A consistent letdown. And she believes she's achieved something? She'll never be anything more than a just. A blunder. A just. The vocabulary cut into me like 1,000 small lacerations. My oral cavity became dry, my digits tightening around my device. I desired to disconnect. I desired to yell, but I couldn't make a move. I couldn't take air. She's fortunate we even permit her to be part of this group, my father continued. I don't understand why she makes the effort to try so diligently. She'll never be one of us. I realized then, he had never intended to connect with me. He had forgotten to end the transmission. That's when the connection ceased. The quiet in my living space was overwhelming. My internal pulse hammered so forcefully I believed it would cause the walls to vibrate. I remained there for an extensive duration, looking at nothing specific. For the previous around 7 years, I had been silently covering their housing payment. They thought their installments were going to the financial institution, but the actuality was, I was the individual maintaining a shelter over their heads. Through Evergreen Acquisitions, the capital firm I'd established with assistance from my fiscal consultant, I had acquired their dwelling loan from the institution after they nearly forfeited the structure. They never perused the fine print. They never were aware. They had no concept they had been residing under my benevolent support. And now I understood they never would have shown concern. My entire existence, I had gone to extreme lengths attempting to gain my father's approval. I exerted more effort than anyone else, rose higher in my professional path, accumulated more monetary resources than he ever did. But it was perpetually insufficient. It would perpetually be insufficient. But this marked the pivotal moment that altered everything. I exhaled slowly, my hands stable as I stretched for my portable computer. I accessed the folder containing the dwelling loan arrangements, the installment program, the possession documentation. My father considered me unsuccessful, that I was nothing substantial. But he was about to discover precisely who he had been reliant upon throughout all these periods. And in about 10 days, he was going to receive the definitive shock. I didn't get rest that night. I remained horizontal in my sleeping area, gazing at the overhead surface, my father's vocabulary repeating in my intellect like a damaged sound recording. She was a blunder that should have never occurred. It wasn't solely the insult. It was the conviction in his tone, the manner in which he articulated it like it was a certainty, not a viewpoint. As if my complete existence was an annoyance. I should have been accustomed to it. My father had never been one inclined to provide commendation. Even as a juvenile, I had to contend for his acceptance. Top grades? Not adequate. Job advancements? Anticipated. Securing my initial residence? Squandering funds. Everything I undertook was either dismissed or critiqued. But despite it all, I clung to one delicate anticipation. Perhaps if I labored hard enough, I could modify his perspective. That anticipation fragmented the instant I overheard that connection. By the breaking of day, I was finished experiencing distress. I was finished experiencing anything at all. I removed myself from my sleeping area, prepared a beverage of dark liquid, and settled down at my workstation. The luminosity from my portable computer display was reflected in my weary visual organs as I opened the folder identified as Evergreen Acquisitions, Property Number 15. My parent structure. The dwelling loan they believed they were covering was in fact registered under my name. The financial institution had moved it to evergreen acquisitions around 7 years prior, when they were periods away from a forced sale. At that time, my mom had connected with me in sorrow, pleading for my assistance. My father had declined to request it, too proud to acknowledge defeat. But I intervened regardless. I had established the ideal setup. They thought they were sending installments to the financial institution, but in reality, every monetary order they dispatched was proceeding directly to my private company. Naturally, I was handling the significant part of the expense. Around 7 years. Around 7 years of disbursing sums each month so they could reside comfortably, never once requesting appreciation, never once expecting them to show subservience. But I had anticipated fundamental decorum. I clicked through the papers, my hands steady as I examined the fine print. When I initially arranged the dwelling loan acquisition, my fiscal consultant, David, had insisted on incorporating a purchasing right clause, a lawful safeguard in the event matters ever deteriorated. Back then, I had found it amusing. What could possibly go amiss? Presently, I was not amused. If they missed an installment, Evergreen Acquisitions possessed the entitlement to seize complete possession of the structure instantly. My parents would be reclassified as temporary occupiers on a monthly arrangement, and if they failed to remit rent, I could initiate removal proceedings under regional regulations. They had no comprehension of the extent of authority I genuinely held. I leaned back in my seating, permitting the magnitude of it to settle over me. My father considered me unsuccessful. He thought I would never amount to anything of consequence. But he had been residing under my shelter this entire period. A sharp smile pulled up my oral cavity. I possessed the capability to deprive them of everything. The sole query was, did they merit it? As if according to expectation, my communication device vibrated. Mother. Hey, dear. Can you visit for an evening meal later this week? We would be pleased to see you. I examined the notification. The prior occasion she extended an invitation for an evening meal, it had been for one particular reason: monetary resources. I contemplated disregarding it, but something within me instructed me to participate in the pretense. If my father could feign affection for me, I could respond with an equivalent pretense. So I entered, me, certainly, anticipating it. A falsehood, but essential. Before securing my portable computer, I had one final item to verify. My male relative, my father's elder sibling, had perpetually been supportive of me. He was the sole individual within the family who had ever treated me as if I held importance. I sent him a brief message. Me, greetings Uncle Ben, I need to pose a query to you. Have you ever heard Father utter anything concerning me? Anything out of the ordinary? His reply arrived nearly instantaneously. Uncle Ben, Chloe, we must converse. I did not wish to be the one to convey this to you, but it is more severe than you imagine. My chest tightened. More severe? What else had they been communicating? The device rang, and I answered on the primary ring. Uncle Ben. He sighed. Chloe, I have maintained silence for too prolonged. But following what I overheard the previous week, I can no longer. I prepared myself. What did they articulate? There was a cessation. Then, they don't merely speak about you behind your back. They have been devising something. Your father, he has been investigating your fiscal affairs. He is convinced you have been concealing monetary resources from them. He informed your mother the previous week that if you do not willingly surrender additional cash, they will discover a method to compel your compliance. Liquid rushed in my internal auditory organs. Compel my compliance? In what manner? He mentioned contacting your place of employment, attempting to discredit you. Perhaps even contacting the tax authorities to conduct an inspection on you. A cold, intense animosity settled within my core. They were not merely ungrateful. They were not merely heartless. They were prepared to ruin me for funds. I took a deliberate inhalation, my digits curving into clenched positions. Uncle Ben, I require you to undertake something for me. Anything, dear. I require authentication. I did not comprehend what my parents had planned, but one aspect was definite. They considered me frail. They had no comprehension of the individual they were engaging with. And in just a few periods, they were going to discover precisely how profoundly mistaken they were. I dedicated the subsequent couple of days to preparation. If my father desired to engage unfairly, I would illustrate to him precisely how perilous underestimating me could be. Initially, I contacted David, my fiscal consultant. Chloe, he greeted, his tone cordial. I assume this is not merely a casual conversation? Not precisely, I articulated, tapping my writing implement against my workstation. I need to ascertain precisely how impregnable our agreement is concerning property number 15. If they miss an installment, how rapidly can I initiate action? David did not hesitate even momentarily. Instantly. The purchasing right clause permits evergreen acquisitions to assume full possession the second they fail to fulfill their obligation. They would possess no lawful remedy unless they have around $400,000 available to buy you out. I smirked. They do not. Then they are in difficulty. I exhaled slowly, experiencing a sensation of mastery settling over me. Excellent, I stated. I require you to execute one further task. Monitor their financial repository. I possess a feeling they are already facing hardship, and I require affirmation that their subsequent installment will not clear. David emitted a soft sound of amusement. That will not require extensive time. From what I perceive, their balance is critically low. If they do not miraculously discover about $6,000 by the 20th, they are finished. I glanced at the schedule. That was in 5 periods. 5 periods until my father, the individual who labeled me unsuccessful, would awaken to realize he had been residing based on my benevolent support. 5 periods until he would be compelled to plead with me for aid. I was not going to provide it. Later that week, I operated my vehicle to my parents' residence as if nothing had transpired. The visual of their dwelling, the dwelling I owned, filled me with an unusual sensation of detachment. This location had once represented my secure area. Now it represented hostile territory. As I traversed up the access route, my mom propelled the entry open, her facial expression radiating. "Chloe, dear, please enter." Her fervor was counterfeit. I was now aware of it. I stepped inside, the aroma of pungent bulb and prepared fowl filling the atmosphere. My father was seated at the head of the consuming surface, upper limbs folded, his expression indiscernible. My mom hovered beside him, arranging platters with meticulousness, as if the ideal evening meal would soften whatever they were about to solicit from me. My male sibling, Noah, leaned back in his seating, exhibiting a slight mocking smile. Unlike me, Noah had never contended for our father's acceptance. He was the favored offspring, the one incapable of error, notwithstanding the fact that he possessed 0 accomplishments credited to his name. I occupied my seating, my facial covering displaying impartiality. "Chloe," my father finally spoke, his tone thick with artificial warmth. "It is agreeable to observe you." I inclined my head. "You as well, father." There ensued an uncomfortable quiet before my mom interjected, her tone excessively sugary. "We have been contemplating extensively about familial bonds recently," she articulated, reaching for my hand across the consuming surface. "And how crucial it is to assist one another during challenging periods." I exhibited no response. "That holds validity," my father exhaled, as if this was demanding for him, as if he were the one undertaking the sacrifice. "The veracity is, Chloe, we require your assistance. The housing installment this month is somewhat restricted." Somewhat restricted? They were moments away from default and he was still minimizing it. "How much do you require?" I inquired, feigning lack of awareness. My mom hesitated. "We were considering merely an additional just $3,500 per month. That should enable us to remain stable." I nearly emitted an audible laugh. They had no comprehension I was already covering about $6,000 every single month. And they desired me to contribute another just $3,500 on top of that? I placed my eating utensil down, inclining my head. "That represents a substantial amount of funds." "It is insignificant compared to what we have performed for you," my father snapped, annoyance piercing through his act. "We nurtured you, provided you with everything. The absolute minimum you can undertake is support your familial unit." I maintained eye contact with him, my internal liquid turning exceptionally cold. The absolute minimum I could undertake? These were the identical individuals who had ridiculed me behind my back, the identical father who had labeled me unsuccessful while residing under my shelter. I took a deliberate sip of water, controlling my facial expression. I will contemplate it. My mom exhaled in relief. Oh dear, expressing gratitude. We were aware we could depend on you. I compelled a smile. They possessed no comprehension that in 4 periods, they would forfeit everything. That evening, I received a communication from David. They have defaulted. The vocabulary sent a shiver of fulfillment through me. They what? I inquired, pretending ignorance. They did not submit the housing installment, David repeated. The financial resources were not present. As of after midnight tonight, Evergreen Acquisitions officially possesses the structure completely. I closed my visual organs, exhaling deliberately. It was accomplished. My father, the individual who had regarded me with disdain my entire existence, was now my temporary occupier. Do you wish to initiate the removal procedure? David inquired. Not presently. I desired to observe the duration it would require for them to grasp the actuality. I smiled, glancing at the bordered familial photographic image on my workstation. It originated from periods ago, back when I still held the conviction my father was capable of affection. Not presently, I murmured. Let us observe the extent they are willing to proceed before they yield. Because they would yield. And this time, I would not be present to assist their fall. I did not have to anticipate for an extensive period. After 4 periods passed, the quiet from my parents was overwhelming. No communications, no text messages, no notifications instilling guilt concerning familial units adhering together. Nothing at all. I comprehended the reason why. They had not yet recognized it. They still believed their installment had processed, still maintained the conviction they held complete control over everything. They had no comprehension the dwelling they resided within, the one they referred to as their residence, no longer belonged to them. At exactly 9:15 in the morning on Friday, the notification arrived in my digital inbox. Subject: Urgent. Failure notification, property number 15, from Evergreen Acquisitions Legal Department. I accessed the electronic message, my internal pulse accelerating with a blend of anticipation and fulfillment. The lawful notice was devoid of warmth, formal and undeniable. Due to failure to submit the agreed-upon housing installment by the deadline of the 20th, the acquisition option clause has been utilized. Effective immediately, Evergreen Acquisitions is the sole proprietor of the property situated at Elm Avenue. As per contractual arrangements, the current occupants will be deemed temporary residents on a monthly basis subject to lease arrangements moving forward. Failure to adhere to lease terms may result in removal proceedings. I gazed at the display, my digits hovering over the input device. This was the moment. I possessed all the influence now. I did not need to contact them initially. They approached me. Just before 9:45 a.m., my communication device rang. Mother. I allowed it to proceed to voicemail. A few minutes after 9:45 a.m., she attempted contact again. Almost 10 a.m., it was my father. I allowed them to experience anxiety for a full hour before I finally answered. Chloe. My mom's tone was elevated in pitch, frantic. There has occurred some sort of error with the financial institution. We just received a notice stating we have defaulted on the housing installment, but that cannot possibly be accurate. You must provide us with assistance. I leaned back in my seating, a deliberate smile commencing across my facial expression. It is not an error. Quiet. What? My mom's tone was barely a whisper. I stated, it is not an error, I repeated, pronouncing every single word distinctly. You did not cover your housing installment, so the dwelling, it is no longer yours. A stunned cessation. Then, Chloe dear, what are you communicating about? My mom emitted a nervous sound of amusement, as if this entire scenario was a jest. This is our residence. I inclined my head. No, Mother. It belonged to you. But the instant you failed to fulfill the obligation, Evergreen Acquisitions took complete possession. Legally, you are now merely residents on a temporary basis. The significance of my vocabulary finally registered. No, that is unachievable. My father's tone interjected, his customary authority cracking with fear. The housing loan is with the financial institution. We have been covering it. For years. I paused after saying that for a little while, then shared the real shocker. You weren't giving the lender money, my father. You were giving it to me. Dead silence. That's not true, my father said, his voice soft and intense, but I could pick up the nervousness hidden in it. I took a breath. No, that's correct. Roughly 7 years back, when you were about to lose this place, I took over the loan. You've been forwarding your cash to ARC Enterprises each month, believing it was a typical lender. But that's the business I run. I stopped talking for a second. This place is mine. It's been mine the whole time. My mother took a sharp gasp. My father muttered something rude quietly. And then my brother David, who must have been standing nearby listening, chuckled. You're saying we've been giving money to live here to our absolutely useless sister this whole time? He snorted. Well, I guess that makes sense why the lender is so disorganized. You probably messed up the records, just like you mess up everything else you touch. I tensed my face, making myself stay relaxed. David had always acted this way, bossy mean, and felt he deserved everything. Well, since you seem to believe I mess up everything, I answered calmly, you'll be thrilled to hear this next bit. Payment to stay here is expected in roughly a month. And if you can't afford it, you'll be made to leave. Sarah, hold on, her mother began, but her father stopped her. This is just talk, he said sharply. You wouldn't treat your own relatives this way. I gave a small, quick chuckle. Really? I considered the time I had used helping them out, the roughly $30,000 I had used making sure they were okay financially while they spoke poorly of me when I wasn't around. I considered what my father said during that phone chat. She's an accident that should not have occurred. I considered how they had intended to pressure me into giving them money, mess up my job, and take things from me if I didn't freely give them extra cash. My father had always felt I wasn't strong. He was about to learn exactly how mistaken his idea was. I've already discussed this with my legal representative, I said calmly. If you fail to pay, you have to leave. And if you attempt any kind of trickery, any trying to control me, any scary warnings, any purposeful harm to the property, I'll take legal action against you. You ungrateful little. I ended the call before her father could complete what he was saying. Within just a few minutes, my mobile device was immediately filled with texts. Mom, Sarah, please don't act this way. We are family. Let's chat. Father, you're going to wish you hadn't done this. Remember I said that. David, you believe you are so clever? You are just a sad, pitiful failure. We will discover a method to get the place returned, just you see. I looked at every single one, then prevented their calls from getting through. I had used my entire existence trying extremely hard to please them. At this point, I was finished. I sat back in my seat and gazed through the glass, allowing the full impact of the situation sink in. After many years, I wasn't supporting them any longer. They were finally going to have to manage things by themselves. And if they failed, that issue belonged to them, not me. The days that followed were strangely silent. 0 phone calls, 0 texts, 0 tearful requests. I partially anticipated my mother to appear at my place, weeping and asking me to forgive them. I thought my father would get angry, try to bully me into changing my mind. I thought my brother would plot, try to discover some small detail in the rules that would allow them to keep the place. But absolutely none of those things occurred. Instead, they became quiet. I understood the reason. They were not just agreeing with what was happening. They were working on their next plan. Their final try. It happened a couple of days after that, on a Thursday afternoon. I was at my job when my mobile screen showed a call from a number I didn't know. I didn't answer. Just 60 seconds later, another call came in, immediately followed by an electronic message. Subject: important. Error regarding house takeover from a law firm's office. I opened it up. Dear Ms. Adams, your parents, Robert and Mary Adams, have gotten in touch with us regarding the recent situation where their place was taken over. They think a mistake has occurred and would like to talk about if they can get the place back. Please get in touch with us very soon so things don't get more legally difficult. Sincerely, William T. Miller, Representative. I shut the message with a small smile. They had gotten legal help. Naturally they had. I sent the message along to Ben, the person who handles my money matters. Not even 15 minutes later, he rang me up, chuckling. They have no basis for legal action, he said. They put their names on the loan agreement. They put their names on the agreement about buying it later. They put their names on all the papers. They are unable to challenge this legally because according to the law, you are correct. I let out a breath, feeling less worried but not shocked. I expected that. But they won't give up, will they? Ben gave a little laugh. Most likely not. But there isn't anything they can actually accomplish. I considered her father, his strong self-belief, his bossiness, how he would prefer to ruin me instead of admitting he didn't succeed. No, they wouldn't give up. They'd continue trying until there was absolutely nothing remaining for them to grasp. That night, as I was finishing my meal, my mobile buzzed. Aunt Carol. I answered it. Hello, Aunt Carol. I just finished talking on the phone with your parent, she said without saying hello first. Her voice sounded very serious. You should watch yourself. I frowned. What now? They aren't just trying to deal with this using only the law, Carol sighed. They are searching for different methods to force you to give in. I felt suddenly nervous. What are you trying to say? They are contacting where you work, attempting to have you removed from your position. I felt sick to my stomach. Is that actually true? They explained to me exactly what they said, that if you refuse to return the place to them freely, they will destroy your life in a different manner. They mentioned contacting the people department, creating a false issue, attempting to make it look like you did something dishonest. Whatever might eliminate you from this situation. I shut my eyes, breathing in deeply. Of course he would. Confronted with his own mistakes, my father would prefer to ruin absolutely everything instead of accepting he lost. But he wasn't just focusing on the place any longer. He was attacking me personally. I wasn't planning to wait for him to take action. The next morning, I went to the Human Resources office on my own. Sarah, my boss Emily welcomed me kindly. How are things? I made myself give a small smile. I need to talk to you about a matter of significance. Just the two of us. She directed me into her room, closing the door once she was inside. I breathed in deeply. I need to inform you about something that might happen. My father? He is going to attempt to have me lose my job. Emily's eyebrows came together in confusion. What? I told her the entire story. The loan, not paying, the scary warnings. The moment I finished, she released a slow breath and moved her head back and forth. Sarah, let me make this completely plain. Your position here is safe. A wave of comfort washed over me. We handle situations similar to this more frequently than you might imagine, she continued. Individuals holding resentments, issues within families, untrue statements. If your father calls, we'll keep a record of everything, but I promise you, he does not possess the ability to affect your employment. She smiled at me in a way that made me feel better. I'll inform our group of lawyers just as a precaution. If he behaves inappropriately at all, we'll send him a formal command to stop. I let out a breath. The tightness I hadn't noticed I was holding on to leaving me. My father had lost his place, and now he had also lost his control over me. That night, the event occurred. Someone knocked on my entrance. A loud, demanding series of knocks. I understood who it was before I even pulled it open. I quickly pulled the door inwards, and they were standing right there, my mother and father. My father stood rigidly, his face flushed with fury. My mother's eyes looked puffy from weeping. Sarah, she said softly, please. I folded my arms. What do you want? We must have the place returned, my father said, speaking quietly but in a way that sounded like a warning. You are not allowed to treat us in this manner. I leaned my head slightly, showing I wasn't affected. I am completely allowed. According to the law regarding money, and based on what is right. My mother held her hands tightly together, looking frantic. We brought you up. We provided you with everything. You are hurting us because of what? I interrupted abruptly. For saying I was no good? For calling me an error? For attempting to destroy my existence the instant I stopped providing you with funds. She reacted suddenly. My father tightened his jaw muscles. You are acting in a very unkind way. I gave a quick laugh that had no amusement in it. No, father, I said, speaking calmly. I am acting justly. A heavy quiet settled among us. Then my father's vision became darker. His mouth twisted into a scornful look. You will feel sorry for this, Sarah. You believe you are succeeding, but that is not the truth. You will amount to nothing without our presence. And at some point in the future, you will understand that fact. Something internal simply fit together. The final tiny bit of hope I possessed that he might ever be different broke into pieces. I looked directly into his eyes. Then I suppose time will reveal the outcome, won't it? Not saying anything further, I closed the entrance forcefully while they were standing there. And ever in my existence, I felt totally unbound. The instant I shut that entrance, I understood I was finished. Not just with their attempts to control me, not just with their feeling they deserved everything. With them. I remained standing there for an extended period, my hands holding onto the door handle. My heart was beating rapidly inside me. I had used a lot of time trying to gain my father's approval, years wishing that at some point he would observe me and perceive someone he could feel good about. But in that moment, as his warning was still echoing in my mind, I understood something that really should have been clear to me the whole time. Regardless of my actions, it would never meet their expectations. And I didn't require it to meet their expectations. The next morning, I transmitted the last official communication. Subject: requirement to leave house number 19 from ARC Enterprises Law Division. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Adams, following earlier communication, the loan contract for the place found at 5th Avenue is no longer valid because payments were not made. As of this day, your right to occupy the place is now officially over. You must empty the property within approximately 1 month. Not doing so will lead to official steps to make you leave. Kindly make certain all your items are taken out before the date limit to prevent legal difficulties. Sincerely, Sarah Adams, Proprietor, ARC Enterprises. I looked closely at the message for a while before pressing the button to send it. This was the final step. They were no longer part of my existence. The consequences started very quickly. My mother called me around 30 times that day. I did not respond. My father recorded just one voice message. You will be sorry for this. Eventually you will come back begging, and when you do, we will not be here. I heard it 2 times, then I removed it. David, my sibling, attempted one final frantic action. David. Good work, Sarah. You just destroyed our relatives. I hope you are pleased. I offered no response. They had used a long time causing me to believe I was the difficulty, that I was never good enough, that I should feel thankful merely for being alive in their existence. But now, they were the individuals who no longer had a place to live. And me? I was eventually unbound. Approximately 1 month went by. I didn't visit the place, didn't contact them, didn't inquire if they required assistance. It wasn't necessary for me to do so. Ben managed all the arrangements. He verified they had departed the day before the final date, probably attempting to avoid the shame of being officially forced out. The place was mainly left undamaged, though they removed items they wanted and abandoned the remainder in messy heaps of waste. Just as expected. I traveled there a final time, simply to look at it. The place was silent, deserted. The dwelling I had previously valued greatly, the location where I had spent my childhood, now belonged solely to me. But as I stood by the entrance, gazing at the empty spaces, I experienced no emotions. No feelings of sorrow, no sense of blame, no longing for the past. Solely a feeling of ease. I took out my mobile and rang Aunt Carol. They're gone, I stated plainly. She let out a breath. What emotions are you experiencing? I considered it for a brief moment. Then my face formed a smile. Less burdened. I sold the place roughly 15 days after that. The buying and selling conditions were good, and in just a few days I no longer owned it. The money I earned? I used it to set up a source of money for younger women getting away from relatives who controlled them using money. Women who, like me, had been led to think they were indebted to their relatives for everything simply because they were born. Because I understood the sensation of being caught. I understood the sensation. I used to think affection had to be earned, but I had gained a significant understanding through this whole experience. Genuine family connections aren't decided by shared biology, they are decided by those who genuinely support you. And my genuine family? It was not them, it was myself. Roughly 90 days later, an electronic message appeared in my digital mail. The sender was my mother. Mom, Sarah, please, I have no idea where else I can turn. Is it possible for us to chat? I gazed at it for an extended period. Several months earlier, I would have worried intensely about this. I would have wondered if I was making the correct choice, if I was acting too severely, too unkindly. But now, I simply removed the communication because certain connections ought to be completely ended, and I was not considering the past.